Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of our Let's Read Through the Dungeons and Dragons Rules Cyclopedia. We are on to character creation. Oh, let me move this on the camera. Sooner or later, you will want to make up your own new character. Before you start, get a pencil and a multi-sided dice used with the D&D game. You will also need a blank character sheet or a piece of notebook paper to keep track of the details. A sample character sheet is found in Appendix 3. If you're using a blank piece of paper, copy the form of the character sheet onto it. In other words, allow a space for your name and the character's name at the top left. A place for character, class, level, armor class, and hit points below that, and so forth. The Dungeon Master should be present and should watch the creation of any player character, including all dice rolls. Your first try at creating a new character will probably take an hour or so. Even when you are used to the procedure, it will still take 10 to 30 minutes. If the Dungeon Master is just beginning a new campaign... There we go. Ooh, I lost my place. Just beginning a new campaign, he should call everyone together for a session where all players create their characters and where he describes the campaign world in which the others will be playing. Once the campaign is underway, a player shouldn't try to create a character at the beginning of a play session, unless the DM specifically asks him to. It delays the start of the game. All the rolling, adjusting, buying, and so forth should be done beforehand. The following is a list of the steps to take when making a new character. Each step is explained in detail. Steps to creating a new character. 1. 1. Roll for ability scores. 2. Choose a character class. 3. Adjust ability scores. 4. Roll for hit points. 5. Roll for money. 6. Buy equipment. 7. Determine other numbers and rolls. 8. Note adjustments for ability scores. 9. Choose character alignment. 10. Select name, personality, and background. 11. Determine character height and weight. And 12. Earn experience. Roll for ability scores. Roll 3d6 for each ability. Strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, charisma. Many of the attributes that make up a character, for instance, his physical might and his level of intelligence, are represented by numbers in the game. 6 of these are the character's abilities. Strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, and charisma. Strength, STR, is the character's physical might. It affects the amount of damage the character does with hand-to-hand weapons, such as swords and clubs, and thrown weapons, such as thrown spears and knives. Affects his chance to hit with hand-to-hand weapons and determines his ability to do such things as breaking down locked doors. Intelligence, INT, is the character's mental might. It affects the number of languages the character can learn. Wisdom, Wiz, is the character's strength of understanding of the world, the way things work, the forces of nature, and so forth. It affects the character's natural ability to resist magical spells. Dexterity, Dex, is the character's nimbleness and grace. It affects the character's ability to wield missile and thrown weapons, such as bows and throwing knives, and it can make it harder for enemies to hit the character. Constitution, Con, is the character's physical health and vigor. It affects the character's hit point score, i.e. his ability to survive being injured. I just lost my place. His ability to survive being injured. Charisma, CHA, is the character's force of personality and presence. It affects the way other characters, especially non-player characters controlled by the DM, react to the character. You roll the dice to find each ability score. This is done by rolling the 6-sided die 3 times and adding the results. Or if you have 3 6-sided die, roll the dice together. This is done by rolling the 6-sided die 3 times and adding the results. Or if you have 3 d6-sided die, roll the die together. This is normally referred to in the text as rolling 3d6. For example, if you roll 1s each time, then your total score is 3, the least score possible. If you roll a 6s, then the total is 18, the highest score you can have. You should end up with 6 numbers, each between 3 and 18. These are your character's ability scores. Write the scores down as you roll them next to the name of their abilities. High ability scores can help the character in certain things. For example, high strength allows a character to deal out more damage in combat. A high constitution helps a character survive injury. A high charisma helps a character attract friends. Low scores have exactly the opposite side effect. We'll discuss these effects in the bonuses and penalties for ability scores table. You can adjust the ability scores to step 3, adjust ability scores, but first you must decide what class your character will be. Prime requisites. Each character class requires prowess in one of the abilities. In other words, each class has an ability that is of the utmost importance to that class. For example, a fighter's most important ability is strength and a cleric is wisdom. These are known as prime requisites. Each character class has its own prime requisite. This means each class is talented at certain things, such as fighting, fighters because of their strength, healing, clerics because of their wisdom, sneaking about, thieves because of their dexterity, and so on. The higher a character's prime requisite score, the more skill he will have in his class, his job. Prime requisites for each class are listed with the character classes. Choose a character class. Character class is a character's main profession in the campaign. Think of each character class as a sort of stereotype. For instance, all warriors in books and movies have some features in common, and those specific features translated into the D&D game items are what make up the fighter character class. The player character PC classes available for you to choose include 4 human classes, cleric, fighter, magic user, thief, 3 demi-human classes, dwarf, elf, halfling, and 2 special character classes, druid and mystic. You probably noticed that the names of the demi-human characters classes sound more like a race or species name than professions. That's because demi-humans are more limited in their options than humans are, so the entire race can be represented by a single character class. Types of character classes. Most characters will be humans. In most D&D game campaigns, humans are the most widespread of all intelligent beings. Any new character can belong to one of the human classes, cleric, fighter, magic user, thief, regardless of his ability scores. And then we have character classes and ability score requirements, prerequisites, requirements, and so on and so forth. Let me move this up. Demi-human characters, dwarf, elf, and halfling. Sorry, I yawned. Should be a little less common. I'm yawning again. These races are supposed to be somewhat reclusive and mysterious. They are known as demi-humans because they are so similar to humans. Each demi-human character class has special ability requirements. If a newly created character doesn't have high enough scores in some specific abilities, he can't belong to demi-human classes. The special character classes, druid and mystic, technically belong instead of human character classes, but they have such a stringent requirements and unusual guidelines that they're set aside for you to look at separately. The DM might not want to use them in his campaign. It's easier for him to make and enforce this decision if they're set aside. Descriptions of character classes. A cleric is a human character who has dedicated his life to a great and worthy cause. Often this cause is the cleric's alignment. A lawful cleric, for example, will be dedicated to spreading law and order throughout the campaign world. The cleric wields magic, and he can use almost as many weapons and armor types as a fighter. The cleric's prime requisite is wisdom. A fighter is a character whose main skill is his prowess at arms. A fighter can be a heavily armored knight or a lightly armored swashbuckler, but it's his extraordinary skill in combat that makes him special. In the game, a fighter's prime requisite is his strength. A magic user is a character who wields magic. He has little or nothing in the way of fighting ability, and in the early part of his career, he has little in the way of magical ability either. But as he gains experience, he becomes a powerful character and can wield powerful magical spells. The magic user's prime requisite is his intelligence. The thief is a character who has spying abilities. Whether he actually makes his living stealing from other people, he has many skills appropriate to do that livelihood. He can move stealthily, climb sheer surfaces, pick locks, and so forth. He has combat abilities better than a magic user's, but he's not a strong combatant. The thief's prime requisite is his dexterity. A dwarf is a sturdy, squat demi-human. He resembles the fighter in many details, but has many special abilities and special restrictions that set him apart from human fighters. The dwarf's prime requisite is his strength. Also, a dwarf character must have a constitution score of 9 or more. If the character you're creating has a constitution of 8 or less, he cannot be a dwarf. An elf is a lean, nimble demi-human. He is a very capable combination of the fighter and magic user classes. He's not quite as tough as a human fighter, nor he will ever achieve the great magic ability of a human magic user, but he does have most of the abilities of both classes. I lost my place. He has other special abilities and restrictions that set him apart from the human classes. The elf has 2 prime requisites, strength and intelligence, and the intelligence score must be a 9 or more. If the character you're creating has an intelligence of 8 or less, he cannot be an elf. Oh, my eyes are itching. I'm so sorry. The halfling is a small demi-human. He has many similar abilities to that of a fighter, but he also is noted for his ability in woodsmanship. He's not as tough as a fighter, and he has special abilities and restrictions that set him apart from the fighter class. The halfling has 2 prime requisites, strength and dexterity, and the dexterity score must be 9 or more. Also, a halfling character must have a score of 9 or better for his constitution. A druid is a special type of spellcaster who devotes himself to the needs and preservation of nature. However, you can't start a character off as a druid. A druid character must start off as a cleric, in fact, as a cleric of the neutral alignment in step 9, and earn a lot of experience up to 9th experience level as a cleric. Only at that point can he become a druid. A mystic is a type of warrior monk. He lives a monastic monistic life, devotes himself to philosophy and the mastery of his physical body, and trains himself to become a master of unarmed fighting. Mystics are not appropriate to all campaigns, so the DM has the option of refusing to allow mystics in this world. The mystic's prime requisites are strength and dexterity. Also, a mystic character must have a score of 13 or better in both his wisdom and dexterity abilities. All these character classes will be described in greater detail in Chapter 2. If you don't yet know enough about these classes to decide what your new character should be, you can also skip ahead to Chapter 2, then return here and make your choice. When you decided what character class your character will be, continue with the next step. Adjust ability scores. You can trade 2 points from an ability score you don't want to raise your prime requisite by 1 point. You can perform this trade as many times as you want, so long as you do not lower any ability below a score of 9. You cannot lower your dexterity, constitution, or charisma. You can only raise your character's prime requisite score. Oh, yawning again. Once you've rolled your character's abilities and decided on his character class, it is possible to raise his prime requisite by lowering other ability scores. This is sort of like training hard to improve one skill while letting others become neglected. For example, a magic user might expend all his time studying hard, neglecting his exercise. He'd end up with a higher intelligence and a lower strength. These are the rules for exchanging ability points. Number 1. The prime requisite goes up 1 point for each 2 points that another ability score goes down. If a character has 2 prime requisites, both can be raised. Constitution and charisma scores points cannot be exchanged with each other. Dexterity cannot be lowered, but it may be raised for a thief or halfling character. No score can be lowered below 9. If it is already 10 or less, it cannot be lowered. Example: an elf has an intelligence scores of 12, intelligence and strength scores of 12, and a wisdom of 13. His player wants him to be both stronger and smarter. He drops the wisdom score by 2 to 11, so 1 point can be added to strength. Then he drops the wisdom again to 9 and adds 1 to intelligence. This results are intelligence and strength scores of 13 and an adjusted wisdom of 9. A cleric with strength and wisdom of 15 drops the strength by 6 to 9 and raises the wisdom by 3 to 18. If you want to exchange any ability score points, you must do that now before you go any further in making the character. Not such adjustments can be made later. Remember that you do not have to adjust any ability score. This is an option, not a requirement. Roll for hit points. Your character's hit point score represents the ability to survive injury. The higher his hit point score, the more damage he can sustain before dying. Oop. Long enough to gain a good deal of experience, typically gain... What? Did I skip something? The highest hit point score, the more damage you can sustain before dying. Characters who survive long enough to gain a good deal of experience typically gain more and more hit points. Therefore, an experienced character lasts longer in a fight or other dangerous situations than does an inexperienced character. Character's profession is class dramatically affects the number of hit points he receives. Fighters and dwarves receive a lot of hit points. Magic users and thieves receive only a few. The other classes receive a medium amount. Find your character class on the character class and hit die table, and then roll the type of die indicated in order to find your starting hit points. Note that your character's constitution score can affect the number of hit points he will have. Look for the bonuses and penalties for ability scores. Look for the bonuses and penalties for ability scores table and apply the appropriate number to the number of hit points rolled for your character. Let's see. Cleric 1d6, Fighter 1d8, Magic User 1d4, Thief 1d4, Dwarf 1d8, Elf 1d6, Halfling 1d6, Druid, not applicable, and Mystic 1d6. And now we're on to Roll for Money. Roll 3d6 and multiply by 10 to find your character's starting gold pieces. Your character starts out with no possessions except for normal clothes and little money, saved up over the many years. I keep reading, and I'm sorry about that. Roll 3d6, 6-sided die, and multiply the total by 10. For example, if you roll 12, the total is 120. This is the number of gold pieces, GP, that you start with. Write that on your character sheet. If you're using a handwritten sheet, write down the word money on the back and put it beside the number you just rolled. Buy equipment. Now that you have your money, you can spend it on the equipment you need to go adventuring. There is a complete list of equipment in the Chapter 4 later in this book. Be sure to ask your Dungeon Master if everything on that list is available in this campaign. If this campaign deviates a lot from the standard D&D game campaign, he should have a very different list of equipment, which he should provide for you. There are restrictions on what items your character is allowed to have, especially on armor and weapons. Before you go shopping, be sure you have read the full description of your character class later in this chapter. For example, a magic user cannot wear any armor at all and can only use a few types of weapons. It would be a waste of money for a character of his class to buy a sword or shield. Instead, his money can be saved or spent on oil, torches, and other items. Thieves, however, must buy thieves' tools to use their open locks ability. On a piece of paper, write down all the equipment you want to buy and add up the cost. If it costs more gold pieces than you have, you must erase something from the list. When you can pay for your list of equipment, subtract the cost from your money and write the equipment down on your character sheet. Be careful when shopping. You may forget to buy rope, for example, and suddenly find a need for it during an adventure. And if you didn't buy it, you don't have it. Ask the other players and your DM for advice on what to buy and what not to buy. Remember that money can be saved for buying expensive equipment later. Don't forget spells. If your character is a spellcaster, he will also need to equip himself with spells he knows. Magic users know one spell at their first level experience, while clerics learn their first spell at second level. Ask your DM for the spells which your characters know. Magic users also need to have spell books to record the spells they know. A magic user's first spell book is free, a gift to the wizard who taught him. Clerics do not need spell books. Determine other numbers and rolls. Armor class attack rolls and saving throws are numbers which will calculate from the character's other abilities to find on provided tables, which are important to the way the character performs in combat. Armor class, sometimes abbreviated as AC, is a number indicating how tough it is to hit your character. With the armor class, unlike most numbers in the D&D game, a low number is good for a character and a high number is bad. Your armor class is a combination of the type of armor you are wearing, plus any adjustments due to dexterity. Your armor class is a combination of the type of armor you are wearing, plus any adjustments due to dexterity. First, find your armor type on the armor type and armor class table. So leather armor, 9. No armor, 9. Leather armor, 7. Scale mail, 6. Chain mail, 5. Banded armor, 4. Plate mail, 3. Suit armor, 0. Shield, subtract 1. Oh, excuse me, I burped. Once you know your armor class is provided by your armor type, you can determine adjustments to your armor class from your dexterity. Find your dexterity score on bonuses and penalties for ability scores table. For every +1 on the table, subtract 1 from your armor class. For every -1, add 1 to your armor class. Example: if you're wearing chainmail and a shield AC 4, but have a dexterity score of 15 plus 1 bonus, your armor class number improves and goes down to 3. If you're wearing plate mail and a shield AC 2, but have a dexterity score of 5 minus 2 penalty, your armor class worsens and goes up to 4. Remember, the lower AC number, the harder you are to hit, which is completely different now. A penalty to armor class actually raises this number, making you easier to hit. If your AC is even better than 0, then negative numbers or minus numbers are used. For example, a character with a dexterity score of 18 with a +3 bonus, which translates to -3 to the AC, and wearing plate mail and shield AC 2 would have an AC of -1, -1. Attack rolls. An attack roll is a number representing how easy or difficult it is for your character to hit other targets. In combat, when your character is trying to hit another character, you roll 1d20. This is known as an attack roll. In some game supplements, it's also called the hit roll, 2-hit roll, or roll to hit. Once you know the number you've rolled on the die, you may add any bonuses your character gets from high ability scores, magical weapons, or other factors. You compare that final result to the number required to hit the armor class of your character's opponent. If you reach or exceed that number, your character has successfully hit his opponent. But how do you find out what number you need to hit a certain armor class? That's simple enough. We provide it to you on the handy tables. Take a look at the attack rolls table on page 106. Go ahead and flip forward to that table and return here when you looked at it. We'll go over that when we get to it. To use the table, cross-reference your character's experience level and character class with his opponent's armor class. On the table, MU stands for Magic User, CTD stands for Clerics, Thieves, and Druids, F stands for Fighters and also includes Mystics and low-level Demi-Humans, and DH stands for Demi-Humans, and is used for high-experienced Demi-Humans. The numbers 19 through -20 stand for the opposition's armor class. A first-level fighter attacks an enemy with an armor class AC of 2. On the attack roll table in Chapter 8, go to F for Fighter, column, go down to where it says 1 through 3, which means experience levels 1 through 3. and then go right to the column corresponding to AC2. You need to roll 17 to hit that armor class. Attack roll table versus THAC0. Now record your character's attack rolls on the character sheet. There are two ways to do this. One is for beginning players and for players who sometimes have a hard time juggling numbers. The other is for experienced players who don't have trouble juggling numbers. Attack rolls. With the first way, you write down your character rolls to hit several armor classes instead of recording all the listed armor classes 19 to -20. We usually record only ACs 9 to -5. There are no armor class. These are the armor classes most commonly encountered in the game. Sorry, I'm tired. On your character sheet, you make a small, simple table listing the attack rolls for your character's level and character class. An example is given on the page of the attack rolls for first level fighter. For all characters, refer to the main table in Chapter 8. Then write down the pertinent information on your character sheet. This way, when your first level fighter is attacking an AC of -2, you'd be able to look down on his character sheet and see immediately that he needs to achieve a roll of 20 to hit this target. THAC0. The abbreviation THAC0 stands for 2-hit armor class 0. There's nothing mysterious about it. It's just the number your character needs to roll to hit armor class 0. On the table immediately above, for example, you see that a first level fighter needs to achieve a roll of 19 to hit an armor class of 0. Therefore, his THAC0 is 19. Some experienced players will not want to have an entire table cluttering up their character sheets. They'll just record the character's THAC0 number. Additionally, many abbreviated descriptions of monsters used in the D&D game adventures will use the THAC0 number. To use THAC0, you have to do some adding and subtracting during combat. You subtract your modified attack roll, the number rolled on a 20-sided die plus any bonuses, from your THAC0, and the result is the armor class your character hits. THAC0, man. I've never used it, but it seems intimidating. For example, Ruggin is a 3rd level dwarf, and he's fighting a hobgoblin clad in chainmail, AC 5. Rugin's THAC0 is 19, and he rolls a 16. Rugen successfully hits his opponent's armor class, 19 minus 16 equals 3, since he hit an AC 3 better than... What? He hit an AC 3 2 better than AC 5. Likewise, instead of figuring out which AC your attack hits, you can use THAC0 to determine which number is needed to hit a specific armor class. Subtract the defender's armor class from the attacker's THAC0. If the armor class is a negative value, add the armor class to the number of the attacker's THAC0. The result is the number the attacker needs to hit his opponent. For instance, Ruggin, the 3rd level dwarf, needs a 19 or better on a 20-sided die to hit monster with AC 0. Ruggin is facing a troll, AC 4, and he needs a roll of 15 or greater to hit the monster. 19 minus 4 equals 15. If you're a beginning player, you should stick to the larger table. When you're comfortable with it, you can practice using THAC0 number. When you're equally comfortable with THAC0, you can stop recording the whole table on your character sheet and merely record THAC0, which is right down there. Saving throws. Find your character's class and experience level on the saving throw table in Chapter 8. Move across to the column representing the type of attack your character is sustaining. The number shows in that column is your saving throw. Roll that number or better on 1d20 to avoid or diminish the effects of the attack. A saving throw represents your character's attempt to avoid the effects of some sort of unusual attack, poison, magical spells, flaming breath of the dragon, and so forth. A successful saving throw means that the character either sustains a reduced amount of damage or suffers no harmful effect at all. Depending on the type of attack, an unsuccessful saving throw means that the character sustains the full damage of the effect of the attack. The saving throw is rolled on a 1d20 when specified by the DM. The character doesn't have just one saving throw number. He has different one for each of 5 categories. I'm yawning again, I'm so sorry. Categories of unusual attacks. Those categories include Poison or Death Ray, Magic Wand, Turning to Stone or Paralysis, Dragon Breath, and Spells or Magic Staff. Saving throws are based on your character's class and experience level. You can find your character's saving throw on saving throw... What? You can find your character's saving throws on the saving throws table on page 109 of Chapter 8. Go ahead and flip to that table, look it over, and return here. To define the saving throws for your character, simply look up his class and experience level. For example, if your character is a 1st level elf, his saving throws would be Death Ray or Poison, 12, Magic Wand, 13, Paralysis or Turn to Stone, 13, Dragon Breath, 15, Spells or Staffs, 15. Write the saving throws appropriate for your character on his character sheet. high wisdom and saving throws. If a character has a wisdom score of 13 or more, he receives a bonus to one of his saving throws. If his wisdom is 8 or less, he receives a penalty. Take a look at the bonuses and penalties for the ability scores table below. If your wisdom score is high or low enough for a bonus or penalty, record that on your character sheet beside your wisdom score. This bonus or penalty affects your character's saving throw versus spells. When rolling your saving throw versus spells, you can add the character's wisdom bonus to his saving throw, or must subtract the penalty if he has a penalty instead. Note adjustments for ability scrolls. Note adjustments for ability scores. You've already seen on several occasions that high abilities give your character special bonuses, while low ones give the character special penalties. Below are the character's abilities and notes on what sorts of adjustments high and low abilities will bring him. When you have high scores and abilities more than specific adjustments which result from them. When you have high scores and abilities, note the specific adjustments which result from them. If you're not using a character sheet which already has blanks for these adjustments, place them beside the abilities, strength, etc., which grant them to the characters. The bonuses and penalties for ability scores table shows ability adjustments. Ability scores. 2 through 3 is a -3, 4 through 5 is a -2, 6 through 8 is a -1, 9 through 12, no adjustment, 13 through 15, +1, 16 through 17, +2, 18, +3. Now, let's go through each of the abilities and see what high scores will do for that ability. How much more is this? 3 more pages. High strength affects how well a character hits with melee weapons, that is, handheld weapons. It affects how much damage the character does with melee weapons and with thrown weapons like hurled knives and spears. And it affects how often a character can budge stuck doorways. The character's adjustments for a high strength score is applied to any roll he makes to hit someone in melee combat. For instance, if a character has a strength of 17, therefore a +2 adjustment, and rolls a 9 on his 1d20 to hit someone, he gets to add his strength adjustment to that roll. He has actually achieved a roll of 11. 9 + 2 = 11. If the character has a strength of 8, therefore a -1 penalty, and he rolls a 9, he has to subtract his penalty. He's actually achieved a roll of 8. 9 - 1 = 8. The character adjustment for strength is also applied to damage he does with melee and thrown weapons. For example, let us say a character with strength 18, adjustment +3, hits someone with his sword and does 8 points of damage. He adds his strength score to the damage, and so his actually done 11 points of damage. Likewise, a character with strength of 5, adjustment -2, rolls 8 points of damage, has actually only done 6 points of damage. 8 - 2 = 6. Finally, the character gets his bonus or penalty to his open doors roll. The open door roll is the character's ability to force open a stuck door. The DM can optionally use it to decide whether the character is strong enough to perform similar feats of strength, such as moving obstructions. The open door roll is on a 1d6 with a roll of 5 or 6 meaning success. The character with high strength applies adjustments to the number rolls on the die. However, a natural, unmodified 6 on an open door roll will always open a door, despite any penalties to the contrary. It's like a crit, kind of. Boy. Oh boy. Sorry. I got so much crap on my desk. For example, a character with a strength 13, adjustment +1, tries to budge a stuck door. On his 1d6, he rolls a 4. This isn't enough. Not a 5 or 6. But he adds his +1 adjustment. His 4 becomes a 5, and suddenly it's enough. He can budge the stuck door. Similarly, a character with a strength 3, adjustment -3, tries a similarly stuck door. On a 1d6, he rolls a 5, normally a success, but he must apply his -3 adjustment, and his 5 suddenly becomes a 2, a failure. Intelligence. High intelligence affects the number of languages a character knows. If the DM is using the optional general skills rule, high intelligence also affects the number of general skills the character knows. A human character of average intelligence, a score of 9 through 12, knows 2 languages, the common tongue and an alignment tongue. The character can read and write those languages. The common tongue is the standard tongue for the campaign. A campaign set in modern America would have English as its common tongue, for example. Demi-human characters usually know an additional language as described for each demi-human character class. If the character receives an adjustment for an intelligence score over 12, a bonus in other words, this is the number of additional languages the character can read and write. Your dungeon master will tell you what languages are available. You must choose your added languages before you play the character in a game. If the intelligence adjustment is a penalty, then the character has trouble writing and perhaps speaking. In either case, look at intelligence and language tables. A score of 3 has trouble speaking, cannot read or write. 4 or 5 cannot read or write common. 6 or 8 cannot write simple common words. Can write simple common words. 9 through 12 reads and writes native languages, usually 2. 13 through 15 reads and writes native languages plus 1 additional language. 16 through 17 reads and writes native languages plus 2 additional languages, and an 18 reads and writes native languages plus 3 additional languages. If your campaign makes use of a lot of languages, especially common in a campaign where the player's characters travel through a lot of foreign lands, or there are a lot of talking monster species, a character's ability with languages can be very important. Wisdom. The effects of a high wisdom are discussed above under where is it? I just lost my place. Above, under high wisdom and saving throws. Adjustments for high wisdom scores affect the character's saving throws versus spells. Dexterity. The effects of a high dexterity are discussed above under armor class. Adjustments for high dexterity scores affect the character's AC. They also affect the character's ability to hit with missile weapons, any thrown weapons or weapons launched through the air. The character's adjustments for a high or low level dexterity is applied to his roll to hit when he is using missile weapons. For example, a character with a dexterity of a character with a 17 dexterity, a character with 17 dexterity, adjustment plus 2, using a bow, is trying to shoot a distant enemy. He needs a 13 to hit his enemy. On his 1d20 attack roll, he rolls a 12. He has failed, but now he has his bonus for the high dexterity, plus 2, and a 12 becomes a 14. He's actually hit his opponent. Constitution. Your Constitution score can affect the number of hit points you have. Look earlier in this chapter for the bonuses and penalties for ability scores table, and apply the bonus or penalty to the number of hit points you rolled. Whatever the adjustments, your hit points cannot be lowered to 0. You will have at least 1 hit point for each roll. Each time a character gains a level of experience, a measure of how experienced he is, roll for more points. And each time you roll, you adjust the roll according to your Constitution score. Eventually, your character will stop gaining dice of hit points every time he earns a level of experience, and will no longer gain bonuses for a very high or very low Constitution score. And instead, he'll start getting a preset number of hit points every level, and his Constitution bonus will not apply to that number. But that's off in the future. Don't worry about it right now. Charisma. A character's charisma score will affect how others, whether characters or monsters, react to him when the character is talking to them, but not unless he is talking. If he tries to hire retainers, bodyguards, assistants, and so forth, his charisma will determine the number he can hire and how loyal they will be. Your dungeon master will tell you if any retainers are available, and will play the roles of these retainers your character finds and possibly hires. And then we have a list. Charisma score 3, reaction adjustment -3, max number of retainers 1, retainer morale 4, 4 through 5, -2 reaction adjusted, max 2 retainers and 5 retainer morale. 6 through 8 is a -1, 3 retainers, 6 morale. 9 through 12, no adjustment, 4 retainers and a 7 morale. 13 through 15, plus 1 to reactions, 5 retainers and 8 morale. 16 through 17, plus 2 reaction, 6 retainers and 9 morale. And then finally 18, plus 3 adjustment, 7 retainers and 10 morale. Let me move this over a bit so you can see. Whether your character is talking to any creature, monster, or character controlled by the DM, tell the DM what your reaction adjustment is. If your dungeon master allows use of retainers and you attempt to employ some, you will need to tell him your character's maximum number of retainers as well as the retainer morale score, which is a measure of loyalty and courage. Reaction adjustments due to high charisma never adjust any rolls you make. They only affect rolls made by the dungeon master, so he needs to know this information. Choosing character alignment. An alignment is a code of behavior or way of life which guides the actions and thoughts of characters and monsters. There are 3 alignments in the D&D game: law, chaos, and neutrality. Players may choose the alignment they feel will best fit their character. A player does not have to tell the other players what alignment he or she has picked, but must tell the dungeon master. Most lawful characters reveal their alignment if asked. When picking alignments, the characters should know Chaotics cannot be trusted even by other chaotics. I don't know why I couldn't read that. A chaotic character does not work well with other PCs. Alignments give characters guidelines to live by. They are not absolute rules. Characters will try to follow their alignment guidelines, but many may not always be successful. To better understand the philosophies behind them, let's define 3 alignments. Yawned. Law or lawful? Law is the belief that everything should follow in order, and that obeying rules is a natural way of life. Lawful creatures will try to tell the truth, obey laws that are fair, keep promises, and care for all living things. If a choice must be made between the benefit of a group or an individual, a lawful character will always choose the group. Sometimes individual freedoms must be given up for the good of the group. Lawful characters and monsters often act in predictable ways. Lawful behavior is usually the same as good behavior. Chaos or chaotic. Chaos is the opposite of law. It is the belief that life is random and that chance and luck rule the world. Laws are made to be broken as long as a person can get away with it. It is not important to keep promises, and lying and telling the truth are both useful. To a chaotic creature, the individual is the most important of all things. Selfishness is the normal way of life, and the group is not important. Chaotics often act on sudden desires and whims. They have strong belief in the power of luck. They cannot always be trusted. Chaotic behavior is usually the same as behavior that can be called evil. Each individual player must decide if his chaotic character is closer to a mean, selfish, evil personality or merely a happy-go-lucky, unpredictable personality. Neutrality or neutral. Neutrality is the belief that the world is a balance between law and chaos. It is important that neither side get too much power and upset the balance. The individual is important, but so is the group. The two sides must work together. A neutral character is most interested in personal survival. Such characters believe in their own wits and abilities rather than luck. They tend to return the treatment they receive from others. Neutral characters will join a party if they think it is in their own best interest, but will not be overly helpful unless there's some sort of profit in it. Neutral behavior may be considered good or evil, or neither. Alignment behavior. Take this situation example. A group of player characters is attacked by a large number of monsters. Escape is not possible unless the monsters are slowed down. A lawful character will fight to protect the group regardless of the danger. The character will not run away unless the whole group does so or is otherwise safe. A neutral character will fight to protect the group as long as it's reasonably safe to do so. If the danger is too great, the character will try to save himself, even at the expense of the rest of the party. A chaotic character might fight the monsters, or he might run away immediately. Chaotics are, as always, unpredictable. The character may not even care what happened to the rest of the party. Playing in alignment does not mean a character must do stupid things. A character should always act as intelligently as the intelligence score indicates unless there are reasons to act otherwise, such as magical curse. Alignment languages. Yawning again, I'm sorry. Alignment languages. Each alignment has a secret language of passwords, hand signals, and other body motions. Player characters and intelligent monsters always know their alignment languages. They will also recognize when another alignment language is being spoken, but will not understand it. Alignment languages have no written form. A character may not learn a different alignment language unless he changes alignments. In such a case, the character forgets the old alignment language and starts using the new one immediately. Select name, personality, and background. You may have been thinking about this all during the character creation process, but now is the time to give your character his name, personality, and background, the traits which make him a real character. Name. You should give your character a name appropriate to the world in which he'll be adventuring. Ask your DM if his campaign setting is based on any real-world civilization. If so, use a name appropriate to that civilization. If you're not familiar with that civilization, ask your DM for help. Or if you're adventuring in an Arabian setting, such legendary names as Ali Baba, Sinbad, and Saladin are appropriate names. Many campaigns are straightforward fantasy with elements drawn from a number of sources. Yet these campaigns may not be strongly based in any of these sources. In that case, you need merely make up a fantasy-sounding name and ask the DM if it sounds appropriate to his campaign. Such names can be made up of interesting-sounding syllables like Adragan or Nicia, and especially in the case of atypical named elves, in the case of lyrically named elves, they may be composed of descriptive words like Silverglade or Woodshadow. Choose a name carefully. It should represent the character in some way, or at least be a name you like. You might find yourself playing this character for years, and if you give him a silly or inappropriate name, you might regret it later. Personality. Alignment isn't all there is to a character's personality. You should think about your character, about his mannerisms, the way he speaks, the way he dresses, and how he spends money. What sort of people he likes, how he likes to spend his non-adventure time, and so on. The more attention you invest in imagining your character with all his traits, virtues, and vices, the more interesting and real you will make them. Sure, it's useful for your character to be the mightiest warrior in the world, but none of the other private characters will care whether he lives or dies unless he has a personality. Background. At some point, you'll need to decide on your character's background. Where and when he was born, how he was reared, who his family is, who his friends were, and what he did up until the time he enters play. This isn't a solo effort, it's a cooperative effort between you and the DM. He knows more about this campaign world than you do. You know more about your character than he does. The two of you have to work together to integrate your character into this world. This is a big block of text. This means that the DM may recommend or even insist on some changes to your character's background in order to make him fit better into the campaign world. You should normally accept any recommendations that you don't seriously interfere with your concept of your character, and should negotiate the ones you do. For example, you may have decided that your character's family lived in a small fishing village in a small distant island far, far away. Your DM may prefer they lived in a small village on the coast of the main continent, not quite so isolated. This probably won't alter your character's personality or personal history, and will allow your DM to fit your character more easily into the campaign. So this is the sort of change you can acquiesce to without any worries. But let's say your DM wants to establish something else about your character. That's when he has 10. A werewolf with a distinctive red and silver coat burst into the door of the family hut and killed all the family except your character. That your character was raised by the family of your mother's brother. It's obvious here that your DM is setting up for some future encounter with that self-same werewolf. Perhaps it will be far in the future, or perhaps the hunt for that monster will be used as the event which will bring all the player characters together in the first place. Whichever, he's not trying to kill your character's family for frivolous reasons, but for reasons related to the plot. However, you've been imagining that your character is emotionally strong and unscarred, and still has a good relationship with his parents and siblings, and the DM's changes would seriously affect your concept of your character. You explain this to him, this is where negotiations enter the picture. He may counter, all right, let's say instead of the werewolf attacked the local pub and your father was among those killed. As the oldest son, you suddenly had to become the man of the family, and now after you've been the main provider for years, your brother and sister are old enough to take over, and you can leave to make a life for yourself at last. This still leaves your character with the tragedy in his past, but he then loses his entire family, and wasn't present to see his father destroyed by the monster, which would tend to leave him much healthier emotionally. So you could agree to this change, and both your purposes and your DM's are served. I'd make the werewolf his father, but that's just me. Another thing you can do, and your DM may be doing as well, is to establish your character already knows some of the other player characters. Talk with the other players to find out something about their characters. When the players have come up with similar backgrounds, you might suggest that those backgrounds intersect with yours, and then try and work out the details. Perhaps another player thought of his character as growing up in the fishing village, in which case you might suggest that it be the same as your characters. Perhaps another character has been in the army, and you conceived of your character as having briefly been a soldier. You can put your characters in the same unit. Yawning again. This sort of thing helps establish connections between your characters. These connections can keep an adventure group from falling apart over trivial incidents of mistrust and confusion. We're almost done. This is the last page. Determine character height and weight. The player can choose any height and weight for his character, which the DM agrees is appropriate. The character height and weight table will give you an idea of what height and weight ranges are average for character races. For use with later encumbrance rules, all character weights are given in coin weight. One coin equals 1/10 of a pound, so a character weighing 2,000 coins actually weighs 200 pounds. And then we have a lovely table. Earn experience. As characters go through a lot of adventures, they gradually get better and better at what they do. Everyone learns to fight better, especially fighters. Everyone learns to withstand damage better, more hit points and better saving throws, and so forth. This is all accomplished through the use of experience points and experience levels. At the end of every game session or completed adventure story, the DM will decide which, the Dungeon Master will reward experience points, abbreviated as XP, to the characters. Experience points are awarded for accomplishing goals in the course of the adventuring story. Every so often, a character will have earned enough experience points to attain a higher experience level. This is often referred to as going up a level. Each time the character goes up a level, he gains more abilities. Under no circumstance can a character adventure more than one level per adventure. All experience beyond the level of adjustment can be retained up to 1 point of a 2-level advance. Any additional experience is lost. Oh, that's kind of harsh. Take a look at the fire experience table on page 16 and then return here. As you can see on this table, the fighter with no experience points, 0 XP, is a first level fighter during his adventuring career, he'll earn experience points. Once he reaches 2,000 points, his player should inform the DM that he's reached his second experience level. Once he reaches 4,000 experience points, he can tell the DM that he's reached third level, and so on and so forth. Oop, don't move. The number of experience points the character must earn, I almost read that as can, become proportionally greater and greater. I would like to apologize. I'm a little dyslexic, so some of these words are getting all jumbled. Don't be alarmed by this. The character's rise to experience levels will slow down, but not as much as the table suggests. As he becomes tougher, he can undertake tougher and tougher quests, which will earn him proportionately more experience points. Hit die and hit points. After a character reaches 9th experience level, often referred to as name level, the player no longer rolls die to gain additional hit points. For each level of experience earned, a given number of hit points instead of hit die will be gained. The number of hit points gained each level after 9th will be shown later in the next chapter. It differs from character class to character class. Each player will roll hit die for his character from 1st level to 9th or 8th. In the case of the halfling character, can only go up to the 8th level. Starting with 10th level, the characters will receive a preset number of hit points appropriate for his character class. Constitution adjustments to hit points apply only to the hit die the player rolls. They do not apply to the hit points added at higher levels. Minimum levels and experience points. Dwarves and elves may not progress beyond 12th level. Halflings may only rise to 8th level. Druids may only achieve 30th level, and only then after a special challenge described in the next chapter, while mystics can only reach 16th level. The other 4 human classes, cleric, fighter, magic user, thief, may continue all the way to 36th level. Holy crap. Once a character reaches his maximum experience level, he does not stop earning experience points. Characters can always earn more experience points. Players should keep records of all the experience points a character earns. Oh my goodness, this is one hell of a chart. Prime requisites and experience points. If your character's prime requisite is high enough, he will get experience points. The experience bonuses and penalties tables will serve as the rule of thumb for calculating how much extra experience clerics, fighters, magic users, and thieves get for high prime requisites. And then we just have this lovely chart. For example, a fighter's prime requisite is strength. If he has a strength of 3 through 5, he loses 20% of all the experience points he learns. If he has a strength of 6 through 8, he loses 10%, 13 through 15, an extra 5%, and if his strength is 16 through 18, he earns an extra 10%. If a fighter's strength of 16 were to be given 100 points of experience, his player would add an extra 10% for a total of 110 experience points before writing the amount down on his character sheet. Last little bit, we're almost done. Calculating experience bonuses. Unless your DM tells you otherwise, you will always calculate your character's experience bonuses or experience penalty. However, some DMs prefer to keep a close eye on a character's experience points and may decide to calculate all such bonuses themselves. In such a case, the DM needs to tell his players about his decision ahead of time, otherwise they might accidentally add their experience points again. And that is the end of character creation. Tomorrow, we will move on to the character classes. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode of our read-through. That was a lot. I knew some of these were going to be long. Some of these are going to be even longer than this. But I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.